The last days of October have always carried a special kind of atmosphere. The air grows sharper, leaves crunch underfoot, and twilight arrives a little earlier each evening. There is a hush to the world, as though the earth itself is holding its breath before winter truly begins. For our ancestors, this was not simply the change of seasons. It was a threshold, a liminal moment when one year died and another began. Long before costumes, jack-o'-lanterns and candy, Celtic communities gathered around blazing bonfires to mark the festival of Samhain. On that night, they believed, the veil between the living and the dead grew thin. Spirits wandered the hills, ancestors returned to visit, and fairies were said to slip into human settlements to cause mischief. People prepared with ritual, fire and food, not just to celebrate, but to survive. Before we begin our journey into the long and fascinating history of Halloween, I'd love to ask you for a bit of participation. Down below in the comments, let me know where you're listening from tonight. I'm always curious to see how far these stories travel, whether you're watching by lantern light in a quiet room, or listening on a commute, or maybe even while carving your pumpkin. And if you enjoy these deep dives into the history of holidays, please take a moment to subscribe to Holiday History. It helps grow this cozy community and ensures you won't miss our next story. Now let's trace the journey, from the ancient harvest fires of Samhain, through centuries of folklore, religion and migration, all the way to the glowing pumpkins and playful frights of the modern Halloween. Act 1. The Celtic Roots of Samhain. Over 2,000 years ago, the Celtic peoples of Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Britain measured their year in halves, the bright half of summer and the dark half of winter. Samhain fell at the very hinge between the two, midway between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. This was no small turning point. The harvest was gathered, livestock driven from pasture, and food preserved for the uncertain months ahead. Winter meant hardship, long nights, empty fields, and the constant threat of hunger. Samhain was both a festival of thanks for survival and a solemn acknowledgement of the dangers to come. The Celts believed the veil between worlds thinned on this night. Ancestors might walk once more among the living, visiting their kin. Offerings of bread, fruit or mead were left outside homes in welcome. But Samhain was not only about benevolent spirits. Malicious forces, fairies, and restless dead were thought to roam too. These could sour milk, blight crops, or lead travellers astray in the dark. Communities built great bonfires on hilltops. From these sacred flames, families relit their hearths, carrying protection and unity into the long winter. Fire symbolized warmth, purification, and a shield against things that lurked in shadow. Costumes, too, were born here. Villagers sometimes disguised themselves in animal skins or masks, hoping to confuse or frighten away wandering spirits. It was less about fun and more about survival, a way to walk through the night unnoticed. Samhain was also a time of divination. Druids and ordinary folk alike believed the liminal veil allowed glimpses into the future. Nuts were roasted to predict marriages, or stones cast into bonfires to read omens for the year ahead. Through ritual and firelight, people sought to make sense of the uncertainty before them. Act 2. Rome arrives, Feralia and Pomona. By the 1st century CE, Rome expanded into Celtic lands, and Samhain absorbed new traditions. The Romans honoured their dead with Feralia, a solemn late October festival where families left offerings at graves. They also celebrated Pomona, the goddess of fruit, orchards, and abundance. Pomona's emblem was the apple. Her influence likely shaped the games and rituals that came to mark Halloween centuries later. Bobbing for apples, peeling an apple to reveal the initial of a future spouse, or floating them in water as a form of romantic fortune-telling. What was once sacred fertility symbolism became playful autumn games, blending seamlessly into the Celtic framework of Samhain. With this cultural fusion, Samhain grew into a season not only of death and spirits, but also of fertility, harvest, and love. Death and life, endings and beginnings, all coexisted in one powerful night. Act 3. Christianity and the Holy Days. By the early Middle Ages, Christianity had spread across Europe, reshaping local traditions. Missionaries found ancient festivals like Samhain deeply rooted, so instead of banning them outright, the Church adapted them. By the 8th century, All Saints' Day, also called All Hallows' Day, was fixed on November 1st, and a century later, All Souls' Day followed on November 2nd. This holy season was meant to honour martyrs, saints, and the departed faithful. The night before, October 31st, became known as All Hallows' Eve, which eventually shortened to Halloween. Yet the older customs clung tightly to this new frame. Bonfires continued, but now were lit as prayers against evil. Disguises survived but shifted into portrayals of devils, saints, or angels. The old pagan feast had not died. It had been baptized into Christian ritual. In rural Ireland and Scotland, Samhain's identity never fully vanished. Even under a Christian calendar, the late October nights remain tinged with mystery, spirits, and sacred fire. Act 4. Medieval mischief, souls, and fortune-telling. As the centuries rolled on, Halloween, or All Hallows' Eve, took on a distinct medieval character. Communities filled the night with both solemnity and play. The most striking custom was souling. The poor would walk from house to house, offering prayers for the dead in exchange for soul cakes. These small, spiced breads were a token of charity, but they also carried a promise. Each cake eaten meant another soul lifted from purgatory. Children soon joined the custom, carrying lanterns made from hollowed turnips carved with faces to ward off spirits. These flickering lanterns are the direct ancestors of our modern jack-o'-lanterns. But not all was solemn. Mischief abounded, gates unlatched, wagons overturned, livestock led into strange fields. The season carried a playful chaos, tolerated as part of its topsy-turvy spirit. Halloween also became a night of magic and divination. Apples and nuts were central tools. In one popular game, 2 nuts were roasted in a fire. If they burned steadily side by side, the lovers they represented would marry. If they sputtered apart, the match would fail. Young women peeled apples and tossed the skins over their shoulders, hoping they would fall in the shape of a lover's initial. In candlelit rooms, mirrors were gazed into for glimpses of future spouses. Such customs reveal Halloween's dual nature. It was both a remembrance of the dead and a celebration of the living's hopes, especially hopes of love, family, and prosperity. Act 5. Crossing the Atlantic, Immigrants and Pumpkins. When Irish and Scottish immigrants came to North America in the 18th and 19th centuries, they carried these rich Halloween traditions with them. In the New World, the holiday adapted to its environment. The potato famine of the 1840s brought a massive wave of Irish immigrants to the United States. With them came stories of spirits, mischievous pranks, souling, and carved lanterns. But instead of turnips, America offered an even better canvas, the pumpkin. Larger, easier to carve, and more abundant, pumpkins quickly replaced turnips as the jack-o'-lantern of choice. One popular legend that travelled across the Atlantic was that of Stingy Jack, a trickster who bargained with the devil and was doomed to wander the earth with only a glowing coal in a hollowed vegetable. This jack-o'-lantern became not only a tale of warning, but the glowing emblem of Halloween itself. In America, Halloween also mingled with harvest festivals and autumn gatherings. Corn husking, quilting parties, and barn dances often coincided with Halloween night, creating a blend of Old World superstition and New World celebration. Act 6. Halloween becomes a community holiday. By the late 19th century, Halloween was taking root as a community holiday in America. Newspapers and civic leaders encouraged families to celebrate with parties, parades, and safe amusements rather than wild mischief. This was the era of Halloween postcards, party guides, and store-bought decorations. Black cats, witches, owls, and grinning pumpkins became standard imagery, often portrayed in whimsical, even romantic ways. Halloween's spooky side was balanced by its cozy and communal tone. By the 1920s and 30s, trick-or-treating was established as a widespread custom. Children knocked on doors, promising mischief unless given sweets. Communities embraced the practice, as it redirected pranks into safer, neighbourly fun. The Great Depression briefly darkened the holiday, with vandalism and pranks sometimes turning destructive. But after World War II, with sugar rationing ended, candy companies leaned fully into Halloween. Individually wrapped treats became the norm, and Halloween became synonymous with candy. Act 7. Pop culture, horror, and the Halloween we know. The 20th century sealed Halloween's identity. Horror films like Halloween turned October 31st into a night of cinematic terror. Haunted houses and ghost tours flourished, creating an industry of fright. Adults reclaimed the holiday through elaborate costume parties, while children revelled in door-to-door candy hunts. Television solidified its place in American memory. It's the Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown became a seasonal classic, while school parades and community festivals made Halloween a cherished rite of childhood. Today, Halloween is a kaleidoscope. Candy and costumes, horror and humour, haunted hayrides and glowing pumpkins. Yet beneath the plastic skeletons and neon lights, the ancient fire of Samhain still flickers. The themes remain: death and life, endings and beginnings, fear and joy, all colliding in one enchanted night. From the sacred bonfires of Celtic Samhain to the candlelit pumpkins on suburban porches, Halloween has always been about thresholds. For the Celts, it marked the death of summer and the birth of winter. For medieval Christians, it honoured the souls of the faithful departed. For immigrants, it preserved heritage in a new land. And for us today, it is a night of imagination, community, and mystery. When you carve a pumpkin, don a costume, or tell a ghost story by lantern light, you are participating in a tradition thousands of years old. The harvest and the haunting, the sacred and the playful, the ancient and the modern, all are woven together into the fabric of Halloween. Halloween isn't just candy. It is the survival of an old belief that on the edge of winter, the world is full of mystery, and we are all part of a story older than memory. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Holiday History, and share it with a friend who loves the cozy, spooky side of October. And before you go, let me know down in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight?